Hey, it's Glenn, and it's June, so happy Pride Month to all of my LGBTQ plus people out there. And I always want to do something for Pride Month, especially, considering how much my writing is about equality and inclusion and the power of diversity. And I always kind of think of it too late because I've got so much going on, but here it is, the last day of my traumatic 10-day vacation. And it's June 1st, and I had a thought, I had an idea, because see, it bothers me. Like, I cannot articulate the depth to which I have been angered and disturbed by current events in this country. How can I fight back? I was just reading an article about and I knew this would happen because these people are stupid. They don't know what transgender people look like. They don't understand the concept. They just know that Fox News and the damn president are telling them to be terrified of transgender people peeking at them in the bathroom, and I can't. It makes me want to hit someone. This is so stupid and wrong and just evil and cruel, and so how can I fight back unless it's right there in front of me? There's really not much I can do. I can't do anything about what I was reading about the other day yesterday was a trans man who got arrested for using the restroom that the idiot Republican laws said he had to use. Because, as you may or may not understand, a transgender man is a man who was born in a female body. Now, if they are post-transition, you can't tell a transgender man in many cases from a cisgender man. They look the same. So these idiot laws, bathroom laws to control 2% of the population who aren't a threat, they require a fully transitioned transgender man to use the women's restroom, which means what the women are going to see is a man walking into their restroom. Perhaps that man has a vagina. Perhaps not. Perhaps that man, and so many of them do, have beards. Perhaps this man has a beard, and is built like a man. Like, this is a man walking into the women's restroom because the law now requires him to. And so, while they're supposed to get arrested, which is not okay, for, while he was supposed to not use the men's room, that's what they made against the law. They made it against the law for a trans man to use the men's room, and required the trans men to use the women's restroom, and then they arrested a man for using the ladies' restroom, even though that's what the law said this particular man had to do. And when this was pointed out, they proceeded with the arrest. It didn't matter that he was actually in full compliance with the idiot laws. So stuff like that has me enraged, and I feel so bad, especially for the T's in the LGBTQ plus community these days, because they've become such an unjust target of hatred and laws. Like, the law, it's 2% of the population, and I've talked about this before and how angry it makes me. But, and it's not just them. Of course, the Trump administration is You know, like, he wants to take the T's out of thing. It's the rump administration. I don't know. We can't even say administration. It's the rump menstruation. You know, and again, and if President Rump does not want to respect people's genders, he wants to change laws. Let's call President Rump, you know, officially, as of right now, you know, if Rump can decide that trans men are women and trans women are men, then I can decide that President Rump is a woman. President Rump is now female on this channel, and we shall henceforth refer to her accordingly. But anyway, this is my I don't have anyone to directly battle over this, so, you know, again, it's not just the trans people. They're trying to strip rights away from all of the letters in the LGBTQ community, and so they're starting with the trans people, but it's, you know, they're not even hiding their homophobia anymore. So everyone is scared. You know, everyone who is represented by the rainbow, who's paying attention, is scared and outnumbered. And I guess what I have decided to do is my little part as an author to help people feel like they are not alone. And so, to that end, in honor of the entire LGBTQ plus community that I would like to see empowered in the face of this fascist, authoritarian, racist, homophobic, Nazi hobgoblin in the White House, I'm going to be making a whole lot of my stuff free for 5 days over the course of the month on Amazon.com. So you have an opportunity to read these without giving Jeff effing Bezos a cut of the money. Because there will be no money involved. They're free. So, where did I put my list? Why I put it all the way over there? Well, I didn't. I'm not wearing my readers. I don't know what. There it is. Right where I intended to put it. Okay, so it's going to be several blocks of 5 days. It's not going to be everything all at once. They'll only let me do this with any given title for 5 days at a time within a 3-month period. So I had to really work out what I'm going to make free when. And it's interesting, like, because I was going through all the books on the shelf and just thinking, okay, which one of these have LGBTQ plus characters at the heart of the story? And I realized literally all of my books, you know, the 11 hardbacks, they all have LGBTQ plus characters. There was only one that didn't have them openly there, and it's because it's a character who, in a later, on the timeline book, you know, is gay. But in the prequel book, that's the only one still sitting on my shelf, that character's in it, but he's 9 years old. So his sexuality is not a thing in this book. And that would be The Demons of the Blood, a Metronome's adventure. And I'm talking about the character of Jono Ginto. So yeah, when he's 9, I mean, that's not going to make y'all feel less alone out there. But, you know, that said, and then the only other book is Cry Wolf, Shadow of the Werewolf, which has like a scene. So I'm not putting that one in this list because it's a fairly, you know, like the protagonist is heterosexual, but one of his best friends is kind of sort of discovering his true orientation, but it doesn't really come to the forefront of this story. So I'm not including Cry Wolf or The Demons of the Blood, but everything else and some short stories will be included. So the first block of 5 days, we're going to start this, well, okay, so it's June 2nd as I'm recording this vlog episode, but it's going to be posted on June 9th. So that's when we're going to start this promotion. So if you're watching this video today, it starts today. So starting, well, that sounds weird because it's not. If you're watching this video on June 9th, you are at day 1 of this promotion, and it's going to go for the rest of the month. So June 9th through 13th is the first block, and that's going to be the biggest one because I had it broken up into 6 blocks, but then I realized, well, this video won't even go up, so everyone that follows me anywhere isn't necessarily going to be told about this until after they've missed some of the stuff. So I wanted to push it all until the 9th so that everyone on any social media platform gets the message and has an opportunity to peruse my free ebooks on Amazon. So in that first block, June 9th through 13th, I'm going to have 2 short stories that are going to be free. The first one is Breath. And now this one is written in metaphor, but it's about a fish guy, a guy who's born with gills, and he's being cared for by this old couple, and these religious people are like, he's an abomination. Like, there's this whole, he has this kind of hero's journey, and if you think Stonewall, that is the key to unlocking the metaphor in this short story about a fish guy. And I love that story, man. Breath. It's a powerful little tale. And the other short story that is going to be available on those dates is The Briar Patch Evangelist. Like, I've got them right here so that I can go through and look at them, but if I lift them up, it's going to be weird because they're right there. Like, the covers are right there on the wall. They magically appear. Movie magic happens, and this is redundant when you got that. So, just if you're wondering what I'm looking at. So, The Briar Patch Evangelist, or The Tale of Peter Rabbit. That's the full title. Now this one is really, yes, there are gay characters in this story that play a significant role. The protagonist, if you can call him that, like, is Peter Rabbit, but he's a bad guy, man. Peter Rabbit is a piece of crap. Like, he's a rabbit. They're rabbits. It's about bunnies. But he is a television evangelist, very right-wing, very, this story is a commentary on Fox News. It's a commentary on, it came out 15 years ago. And it was a statement against the movement that has become the MAGA movement. And Peter Rabbit sort of embodies the right-wing Christian evangelical movement where, he's just using Christianity to permit him to be hateful. And it's a crazy story. I mean, it's crazy. It's a cartoonish story, but anyway, those are the 2 short stories that are kicking this off, and I've also got the 9th through the 13th, all 5 books in the Legends of Nod. And so the Legends of Nod, I feel, is very empowering. Like, and it's very, it is all about the power of diversity. And so the protagonist in all 5 books is Prince Jorin, who has a boyfriend, Galen, and, you know, it's kind of incidental. In the realm of Nod, they don't really have words for sexual orientation. You know, everyone just kind of exists, and is accepted as they are, for the most part. Like, at least in the core culture that our characters live in. And so book 1 is about Jorin going to rescue his boyfriend from dragons. You know, and I've got all 5 of these books scheduled to be free, the 9th through the 13th. They don't all directly deal with Jorin's sexuality. It's more of an incidental in most of the books. But there are other books that do deal with sexuality more directly. And, you know, like book 4, you know, I guess I don't want to say who it is, but there's a plot twist midway through book 4 where you learn that one of the characters, you know, one of the core recurring characters is bisexual. Chaotically bisexual. He's so much fun. I love this character. But, you know, so they do have discussions about it, like, and, you know, I feel like, and I'll be honest about this with book 4, I feel like it both does a service and a disservice to transgender people, because, you know, it's a campy, like, I was thinking about it, like, what do I tell people when they ask what kind of books do I write? I'll just say, well, I write campy melodramas. Like, it's, the Legends of Nod is very camp. It's also very dramatic. Every book is an emotional roller coaster. So, book 4 is no exception, but, it's far more camp than the rest of the books thus far in the series. Like, I kind of have that in mind whenever the cowboy character, because I mean everything's in Nod, man. You got princes, robots, cowboys, people with tech suits, bionic unicorns, like anything goes in Nod. So book 4, we lean way into the camp aspect of it. It's much more of a cartoon. But I mean, it's part of the story. Like, if you read it, you'll understand why. And also, whenever we follow the character of Longshot into an adventure, which is the case with book 4, like, I have it in mind, because Longshot is a very camp character. And, like, that sort of vibe just follows him, and this story very much follows Longshot into the adventure. So we're going into Longshot's camp history, basically. Like, you get a little bit more of where he came from and such. But there is a scene, like, I don't directly deal with transgender people in that experience in this book, but I do feel like, you know, it's kind of like everything is funny in this book. Everything is goofy, cartoony, and weird. And, like, there's a punchline, I would call it, I guess, in the book that I fear could be misinterpreted as making fun of transgender people. But, you know, because there's someone who has a similar problem. There's a character who has a similar problem, but it isn't the same. Because it's they're just uncomfortable in their own form. And I guess the main theme of book 4, which is called the Mech Valley debacle, is that you don't get to choose who your children are, basically. Like, and there's this robot unicorn who had an incident in book 2 which brought out this personality that, like, the tech guy character, K-Bid, is having an issue with it because he's like, I didn't program you this way. And, like, having to come to terms with the fact that this robot unicorn, Marley, is more than his programming, has a personality that doesn't belong to the engineer who designed him. And that's a theme throughout the book, is that people are not who you're expecting them to be. There's, people don't fit into the cookie cutter of social expectations. And I feel that the fact that I don't directly have a transgender character in this book kind of sucks, but it would have been forced if I did, and it sucks that transgender issues are dealt with mostly in metaphor in this book, but we do mention specifically, like, it is mentioned that people in a highly advanced society that exists in this world, like there's this isolated kingdom called Deluvia that's like 1,000,000 years or so ahead of everyone when it comes to technology. And when we're talking about people being uncomfortable in their own created, like their physical forms, that it doesn't match who they are internally, one of the characters does specifically mention transgender people in Deluvia, and how, well, if something like this happened to a human in Deluvia, we just give you a pill and then your body's gender changes to match your true self. Like, so they are mentioned, and that's how the Deluvians deal with being transgender. But, there aren't any characters in it. I feel like we make up for that, though, in book 5. And I know, like, book 8, if you were a transgender person reading The Legends of Nod, I promise you, book 8 is for you. And I think, it's the series on the whole. If I fumbled with book 4, which isn't an apology, because it is what I intended it to be, I just don't know how it comes across for a transgender reader. But they do talk about real transgender people in book 4 and book 5, and there will be, like, transgender characters play a very big part when book 8 comes out in a year or two. And in book 5, there's a scene where a character is discussing his transgender sister with someone. So, that being, it's more of a disclaimer than I feel like the books actually require, but you're going to see, like, the full spectrum of sexual orientation, gender identity, race. It's all going to be in The Legends of Nod and presented as a positive. So The Legends of Nod is meant to be empowering. So hopefully you'll check that out for free. No money for Jeff Bezos. Piss off the hobgoblin, make his skin melt off by reading LGBTQ plus fantasy adventure series. Book 1 is The Dragons of Nod. Book 2 is All for the Blood of Nightstorm. Book 3 is Enter the Wanderer. Book 4 is The Mech Valley Debacle. And book 5 is A Hero Before His Time. And if you catch up later this year, still waiting on cover art. But book 6, Joran and Galen, which is a straight up gay love story, will be coming out in hardback as well. So, not in time to be free, but if you like this series, you can look forward to the next episode coming out fairly quickly. Okay, so the next block is June 11th through 15th, and that is going to be the Chronicles of Nightfire, Texas. And, I am currently reissuing this series on my website, which I'm in the midst of a boxing match with right now. So, there have been a couple minor delays on Chapter 4 getting reissued, but the first 15 chapters are still on Amazon. After this promotion, they're probably going to be archived and taken out of print because they're being reissued in newer editions, newer, cleaner editions. Like Book 1, there's and it's on my website now, the first 3 chapters that comprise Volume 1, The Vampire Murders, already on my website for free, in serial form. And the author's note at the beginning is there, and that's what's going to be in the newer editions of the collected hardbacks as well, just addressing the use of casual racism. And I've talked about this before on this channel, how it's the characters, it's set in a small Texas town in the 1970s, and some of the characters are racist as hell, and I felt like it was important to depict that because that's history, and I don't think we should let the history of white supremacy in this country off the hook. I feel like if we clean it up and pretend that everybody was cool with everybody in 1974, we are doing future generations a disservice. We need to know how people were treated. It's, I like to call this series Norman Lear meets Dracula. Like, we deal with all these social issues and such, but it's also got all these supernatural things. It's a gothic soap opera is what the Chronicles of Nightfire, Texas is. So Book 1 I included in this primarily because Book 2 doesn't make sense. It's a soap opera. So it's all cliffhangers. If you haven't read Book 1, I put Book 2 up for free. You're going to start out being lost. So, but Book 2 is the one that's important for Pride Month, because in Book 2 you learn that one of the 4 protagonists, it's kind of an ensemble cast that I plot around 4 characters, even though there are characters who are equally at the center of things as these 4 dudes, but you find out one of the 4 is bisexual, and there is a couple of love triangles in Volume 2, The Haunting of Alexis Mansion, but one of them is with ghosts and a vampire, and so he's got, there's these flashbacks that he has to when the ghosts were not ghosts, and how he was in love with them both. And, there's this whole love triangle from the 1910s that is told through flashbacks and dream sequences and being dealt with in the book's present day by confrontations with these spirits. So it's a bisexual love story. And that's a character who, again, I don't want to give away any plot twists, so I'm not saying which of the characters is the bisexual character, but it's front and center in this story. And male, I feel like, male bisexuals, are overlooked probably more than anyone else in the LGBTQ plus community. It's like bisexual women get a lot more of the spotlight. Unfortunately, a lot of that is fetishistic. It's like performative for heterosexual men's gratification. I don't like that, but that is, a large part, I think, of why bisexual women are far more acceptable to see in literature and on film and television, because guys are making these movies and it gets them off. I mean, I don't know, straight guys in particular. So I do make an effort to, by visibility is one of my, I guess, crusades as a writer. Like, I don't force characters to be bisexual, but when they are, I don't keep it a secret. Like, they they have a lot to say. So both volumes of the Chronicles of Nightfire Texas will be free from June 11th to the 15th. And again, just like with the Legends of Nod, these are being reissued for free on my website. So if you miss these here, don't worry about it. By the end of the year, all 15 chapters will be up at glennslade-clark-jr.com, where you can read them for free in PDF form. They'll also be reissued as Kindle eBooks, but that's just because I've realized there are people who still, even if they're free on my website, prefer to read them on their Kindles. So, that said, it leads into next year. The third arc, Volume 3, is going to be serialized on my website before being collected into a third hardback. So this is an opportunity to get caught up for free on your Kindle, and you don't even have to wait for my much cleaner author-preferred editions to come out over the course of the year. And you'll be good to go when the next arc starts up next year. Okay, and the next one I had issues with, like they wouldn't let me do a free promotion with it. And I think that's because this book, The Great Debate, which is a collection of 3 short stories and a novella. It was tied up with other publishers, and when this edition came out on, it's a long story, publishing stuff, tedium. But for whatever reason, I am not allowed to do a free promotion on Amazon. But if I can get my website, my author website, to cooperate, then I'm looking at my dates without my readers, that's why I'm slow, from June 16th through the 20th, The Great Debate will be free in PDF form on my author website. And now, so The Great Debate is 100% all about LGBTQ plus people. It's really about confronting religion and dogma that's being twisted to hurt and attack and oppress people. It's a book of reconciliation, really, I think. So if you're a person of faith and you're part of the LGBTQ plus community, my hope is that this book will be a comfort to you. Because the first short story in there is the first story I ever had published, and still to this day, by far my most widely read short story, or publication at all, The Rainbow-Colored Sheep, which is very short. It's of course it's a metaphor, but I included it in this book at the beginning because the 3 stories that follow it build on the themes from that story. So the novella is what follows next. It's called 6 Nights to Damnation. It's about I don't know how I would qualify the sexual orientation of this character. I mean, he's functionally bisexual, but this story deals far more with his same gender attractions, his same sex attractions, and like his struggle with them. And it's a dark story, man. It's not a happy tale, but it's part of the larger metaphor, the larger it kind of goes through the phases of coming out, is what it is. It's like The Rainbow Colored Sheep is a story about accepting who you are and accepting that the people who tell you that that's wrong are wrong. That, that's how you were made, to quote the Bard, baby, you were born this way. The Bard being Lady Gaga. And so that's kind of about recognizing and accepting 6 Nights to Damnation it's like the fear of consequences. It is the fear that you're wrong, and that gets into the whole religious thing in this book, where like if you are a person of the Christian faith struggling with your sexual orientation, you accept it, you come out, you refuse to hide. That's The Rainbow Colored Sheep. 6 Nights to Damnation, these are your fears. This is the worst case scenario, that this is a dark place to go, which is why I've never published 6 Nights to Damnation on its own. And I don't think I ever would, because without the context of the stories around it, it looks like it's giving a very different message. But it's the fear. That's what the story is. It is a horror story. But I really like it. Like, it's a really powerful story. But keep reading, because then it's followed by a short story called Christian's Dilemma. So it's kind of like, in the metaphor then, it's like, so you've got, you know who you are, you're coming out, Rainbow Colored Sheep, you have these horrific fears about the consequences to that action, fears of hell even, perhaps, and so we're facing those fears in 6 Nights to Damnation. Christian's Dilemma is the next stage in that process, where, it's about this character named Christian who has a suicide demon in his closet that's trying to get him to kill himself and telling him how, everybody hates you, you're worthless. And Christian is a bisexual character. And he's just feeling it. He's feeling the oppression. He's feeling, the finger pointing. He's feeling, all the people telling him that he is a terrible person, even though he's not. He's just a person. And, he's got this ghostly skeleton with a gun in his closet trying to convince him to blow his brains out and get out of everybody's way. But then, he trips over an angel. It's a crazy story, man. But it's, to me, I think that story represents reconciliation. Acknowledging the bad, but also acknowledging the good, and choosing the good, choosing to be empowered, and to be, and I guess it's about making peace with it, with who you are, and understanding that there are people who aren't going to get it. And then the last story in the book is called Reverend Phillips is Going to Hell, and it's about, if you remember, some years back, there was a non-denominational, very small church pastor named Reverend Phelps, who was a very hateful man. His entire congregation was just dedicated to hating gay people. They picketed funerals. They may still to this day on their church website, if it still exists, I haven't bothered to check, they had a counter for how many days Matthew Shepard had been in hell. So, they're awful people. They don't limit it to gay people, but that's their primary obsession. So I wanted a character like that, who gets confronted in a Dickensian Ebenezer Scrooge kind of way by a ghost of someone who he tried to save from his homosexuality and basically brainwashed him into being a gay basher. And like but you know, he had a traffic accident or something, he died and figured out, oh, we were assholes, weren't we? And like, it's like, so he comes back to try to get the preacher to see the error of his ways by making him live as the people he's persecuted. So it's not, that story's not limited to LGBTQ issues. There is, you know, the ghost is the ghost of a gay man. And one of the people that Reverend Phillips is forced to inhabit the life of temporarily is a gay person. So there's a gay couple, or a burgeoning gay couple, I should say. So, and that, you know, it's 4 separate stories, but they're designed to be read together. Because that one is more about, okay, so Christian's Dilemma, we've reconciled and accepted boldly. Next step is activism. And, you know, trying to have conversations with the haters, or, you know, if you were a hater, like going out and speaking up and speaking out. That's what the last story is about. So that book, The Great Debate, will be hopefully free on my website from the 16th to the 20th in PDF form. Sorry I couldn't get it on your Kindles, but you can still buy it on the Kindle. It's not that expensive. I don't overprice my books. Okay, so the next block is June 21st through 25th, and that's going to be the Metronomes block of this giveaway. And I mentioned earlier, you know, and we'll come back to Jono, but Metronomes is another series. I guess that's what fantasy is about to me, is exploring the power of diversity without labels. But there's going to be a short story and a novel from the Metronomes series that are going to be free during those days. The short story is actually the newest one, Metronomes Death Match, which I didn't even realize until I'd finished writing this one how queer it is. Like, it's got a lot, like, it's got more, I guess, overt sexuality than anything else in Metronomes thus far. And it's not pornographic. It's not graphic at all, you know. It's kind of like, I feel like all ages can read this. It's like adults reading this will be like, oh, and they just did it. But a kid reading this will be like, oh, cool. I guess they had a sleepover. Those two guys just had a sleepover. I mean, because there's nothing graphic. They don't specifically call anything out. Metronomes is, in my opinion, safe for all ages. And I mean, in my opinion, I'm not actually worried about all ages. Like, you know, if a kid figures out sex exists, well, explain it to them. I mean, what's the threat there? But that's just me. Parents need to make their own calls on stuff like that, so I'm just being upfront about things. If I'm like, it's really hot in this office, they turn the AC off early on the weekends and it's hot as hell outside. And if I open the door, air conditioning comes in from the hall, but then I'm going to echo through the halls as I'm making this video, so I'm just, if I look sweaty or glistening, I don't know. I won't know till I edit this. But it's probably 90 degrees in this office. And this video is taking a really long time to make. So anyway, like, Metronomes Deathmatch overtly showcases the sexual orientations of 3 characters. And there's not that many characters in it. Well, I guess it actually, like, all the characters because there's two human characters, but we're not talking about them right now. We're talking about the gnomes. So, the main character in this story is bisexual, and there are two gay gnomes in it that specifically reference their orientations, even though we don't have words. Like, they don't use words like gay, straight, whatever. It's just, you learn that one of them has a boyfriend and he is in fact a boy. And it's a story about villains, so it's kind of fun. Like, gay people can be bad guys too. Like, that's the thing about humans. Like, any kind of a human can be any kind of a human. Like, you can be a good guy or a bad guy regardless of your race, gender, orientation, whatever. You can be a good guy or a bad guy, but don't worry, if you need good guys, then we have the novel Metronomes, The Shaman's Apprentice, which I included in there because, it's not really showcased with the protagonists of this particular chapter of the Metronomes saga. It's more in the supporting characters at this point. But, with Metronomes, though, stick with it. Like, there is going to be representation of all sorts as we go through this series. But there are characters in there who I feel like just the casual acceptance of them in the old world gnome society is empowering. It's there's this whole scene where these warriors apprentices are just hanging out, teenagers talking about their crushes, and there's just, I love that scene because of just the casual acceptance of the variety in there. Because you have straight guys, you have a gay guy, you have a bi guy, and no one's like being judged on that. They'll be teased, but not about that, not about their orientation. They might just get teased about who they have a crush on. It's very, I think, natural and realistic and empowering. And there's another very unhealthy gay crush. A character has a crush that's very unhealthy in this book, but it's a core part of the storyline as the series progresses. That's an important detail, but it's balanced, I think, by the aforementioned Jono Gento and his husband Fraternus Davad. I don't know if I've ever said Fraternus's last name in print. I don't know if I've ever written it down, but that's what it is. It's Davad, who have a very healthy relationship. Like, they're supporting characters in this, but their role will increase throughout the series as well. But I included Metronomes, the Shaman's Apprentice, in this, not because LGBTQ plus characters are leading the story, but because they're all over it, and they're just an integral part of the narrative, and they're just so perfectly accepted. And talking about this, I don't know how long this damn vlog is gonna be, me just ranting about my babies, but I remember when the first edition was being published, I went back and forth with the publishers on this. Like, this one, we were talking to Barnes and Noble about, they initiated the conversation about doing a display of this book and just seeing how it did, but they wanted changes made that I wasn't willing to make. So that never happened. No regrets. But I remember one of the things that really pissed me off was I had mentioned power of diversity in because that's really what Metronomes is about. It is about the power of diversity. And they wanted me to change diversity and say that it's a story about tolerance. And I hate that. I hate when you teach tolerance of different religions, tolerance of different races, tolerance of different cultures, tolerance of the LGBTQ community. I teach acceptance, not tolerance. I don't want you to tolerate these characters. I want you to fully embrace these characters. As I feel like diverse people should be fully embraced. As long as you're not hurting other people directly and deliberately, I fully embrace people of various religions. I draw the line when they weaponize their religion to hurt people. That's completely different. That I will not tolerate. But people who are just being their genuine selves and saying, this is who I am, I'm all about that. It's like you're not saying, I need you, therefore, to be just like me. No, that's horse crap. Live and let live. That's that's kind of the metronome's message. But yeah, so tolerance, no. Power of diversity, yes. And then the other... Oh yeah, okay. So then that brings us to the last 5 days of the month, the 26th through the 30th. And the Rainbow Colored Sheep is going to be available for free on its own. And you will have already gotten the Rainbow Colored Sheep with the Great Debate. But if you missed it, here's another chance. And then the other story is The Escapist, which, if I can finish talking with my scratchy, dry throat... I almost didn't include The Escapist. I mean, because it's kind of problematic, but it's... but it's a character study. It's not even a full story. It's more like a scene. Like a vignette. And the main reason I almost didn't include it is because it might not have the meaning that it has for me and the characters if you haven't read the novel Cry Wolf, Shadow of the Werewolf, because what it is it's, let me do math, 5 years after that novel, and it's following the character from that novel that I mentioned earlier in this video, was kind of dealing with discovering his sexual orientation in that novel. Though it's not a big part of that novel, it's just kind of a thing that's barely mentioned specifically. But 5 years later, we see him, we catch up with this character after the horrific events of that werewolf novel. So, he's been through some shit. But it's a scene in his life 5 years after that novel. And I wrote it because the character wanted me to see where he was at. It's that's how I feel like my characters kind of speak to me. I don't force any of my stories. I just tell what I see. And this is what I see. So, that's what it is. It's so the whole thing takes place in a Dallas gay bar. And it's basically him problematically trying to pick a guy up at the pool table. So, I don't know. But, it's an LGBTQ plus story, absolutely, and 100%. So, it's included in here as well. And so, that's what I am doing for Pride Month. That's what I'm giving to the community. Giving back to the community. So that's going to be happening in June, but that said, June is not the only time that my writing and my social media platforms are safe for LGBTQ plus people. I like that George Takei quote about the transgender bathroom issue. You can pee next to me. That's how I feel about it, and always do every month of the year, not just June. But it is June, so we're emphasizing it, we're highlighting it. And again, most of my work has LGBTQ plus characters in it. But I want everyone to have an opportunity to read these stories. I want everyone to have an opportunity to have a hero like Prince Joran who is like them, or a hero like the chaotic bisexual character in The Legends of Nod who is like them. I want you to have the opportunity, whether you have the money to buy a Kindle or to, because you can read these on your phones. You can Kindle. You don't need to actually buy a Kindle, but if you can't afford to buy the novels, I want you to have that opportunity. Like if you're a jobless teenager going to school and feeling alone, I want you to be able to quietly read these stories and feel empowered. I want you to feel not alone, because you are not alone. These knuckle-dragging, mouth-breathing Nazi motherfuckers who are in power in this country right now do not represent the majority of the people in this country right now. They do not represent me. They do not represent the people I choose to associate with. So, always and forever, I am with you. I am one of you. And I have your back. We are not alone.